This is a lot of smart people in one place, and it's a great privilege to be able to connect and speak with you today. What we're going to be talking about, and what I hope you can get from our session this morning, is to understand how to measure, advance, and sell the value of intelligent content assets inside of your organizations. Learn why to define and integrate a content engineering practice inside the business, along with content strategy and development, and then also to gain some tools for reusing content assets and calculating the ROI. So I hope it's going to be both big picture and very, very practical. So I've divided this content today for you into 5 segments that we're going to be walking through. 1 is content as assets. 2 is the ROI of content reuse. So talking about metrics, we were talking this morning about the 4 different ways to calculate ROI, so we'll be walking through that. Content strategy, content engineering, and how those 2 roles work together. Specifically, how to integrate content engineering into an enterprise and where it fits, ideally, and then also you can kind of map it to your own environment and see how that works in practice, and making the case and getting started with a content engineering a practice inside of the organization. So I'm Cruce Saunders. Carlos introduced me, so I'm going to skip past this and get right into content as assets. Before I do that, though, I'd like to just get a sense of anybody in the room. Could you raise your hand if you are involved in the practice of content engineering in one way, shape, or form, even if it's not your title, but you believe that you practice content engineering? Wow. Okay, that's a record. And how many people have never really run across the term until they got to ICC or just not familiar with content engineering as a concept? Okay, a few. Okay, great. So we'll cover what content engineering is, but we'll definitely focus on some of the practitioner level learns. So all ROI for content ultimately comes from engagement at some level, right? And engagement is born of impressions. So impressions is content getting to a human or a robot. And the robots are increasingly important in this conversation because the robots are starting to be consumers of information at a faster rate in some cases than humans are, and they're responsible for repackaging that information and getting it back to humans. So it is an amplifying circle. You generate impressions, which creates engagement. You stimulate a robot's understanding of your content, which then provides answers to humans, and that creates more impressions, right? So that ultimately drives significant value in an enterprise. And we're going to get really specific about what that value is. Content should be a balance sheet asset. Ultimately, I'd really like to get this message in front of CEOs and CFOs, right? Not everybody here can just decide to put it on the balance sheet and start marking it up along with intellectual property, but that's where it should be, because content has the ability to deliver more return than the investment that went into it, right? So anything you can invest in that delivers an ongoing return is an asset, and it needs to be valued that way in the business. Content is an expression of everything an organization is and everything an organization does, right? So all of the stories, knowledge, and data, including the transaction data that we're gathering in our big data farms, are content. So we're not talking about the stuff that we give that marketers use to create customer experiences. That's important, but it's everything in an organization. It takes many, many forms. I used to say content is data and data is content. It's still a true statement. However, it's a much bigger picture. And I've realized that this big picture is something we need to be conscious of when we're making our content assets intelligent. Data is the microscopic level of content, and that can be any bit of information in any form in our businesses. But data with context becomes information. Information that has that's actionable becomes knowledge. Knowledge that is paired with experience and in relationship with other knowledge becomes intelligence. And intelligence that is mapped against a large field and subjected to pattern recognition and statistical probability becomes cognition. Okay, so when IBM is talking about Watson and the cognitive enterprise, what they're ultimately talking about is finding ways up this content maturity model that I'm presenting here to this level of cognition. And then at a cosmological level, which is a word that came up at lunch yesterday, or dinner, we've got wisdom, and beyond that, one might argue poetry, but we don't get paid to create poetry too much, so we don't talk about that. But there's a continuum to content that has value, and it's everywhere inside of our enterprises. It's in marketing, for sure, but it's also in operations. It's also in finance. It's in IT. It's in service delivery. It's in every part of the business. And it's an amalgam, and it's moving together and working together with the other content in your business, most of the time fairly haphazardly without structure. Content engineers create structure and relationships between the content assets in our organizations. And it's valuable everywhere it exists, right? As intellectual property, content is incredibly valuable, and that's already on the balance sheet. As training and development, it is prompting the next generation of our employees that are facing our customers and creating their experiences. So that becomes very valuable there. Knowledge management, it's holding the knowledge of our organizations and translating that to stakeholders and partners across channels. It is allowing workflow in operations and legal. So content's everywhere, and it's doing a lot of stuff. Today, we're going to focus on externally published content that's going out via multiple channels outside of the business. Content is valuable to the extent that it influences human awareness, intelligence, and behavior. So if content ultimately creates a different mindset and a different action and a different movement in the world for a reader or somebody that's a receiver of that impression, that content has performed its job, right? And there's a lot of forms of that. But content becomes more valuable because of the human and robot interaction with the content. So the more interaction, the more value that content is likely to produce, which is directly as a result of human and robot impressions. Okay, I'm trying to create a logical connection it's not a big leap. It's not necessarily rocket science. It's just critical to understanding why content engineering is a practice of utmost importance to delivering value to the outside world. Impressions are enabled by structure and driven by content reuse. And reuse is a theme we'll be returning to a lot today because it drives ROI and it also drives down the cost of asset production. So to reach humans and robots, published content must be intelligent. Okay, and here in the advanced track, this is probably not news to you, that it needs to be multi-platform, multi-channel, and multi-context in order to be able to maximize or get the best ROI out of every content asset that you have. You need to be able to reach the platforms and the places and the times and the channels where the actual users are, the customers are that you're creating experiences for. But one thing that I want to be very, very clear about is intelligent content is not the destination. It is the road to our customers, through our distribution channels to our customers. We're not here to learn ultimately about intelligent content. Who cares about intelligent content? We care about customers. We care about their experiences. And so the intelligent content is the how we get there, and content engineering is the how we get to intelligent content. Okay, but it's ultimately about the customers.